All right, guys. We've got a little more drama. I did a Ramsey trade podcast a couple of days ago. Things kind of percolated a little bit. There's some new news, some new players. But I want to get into, I forgot who it was, but somebody said, I think it was Alf, but don't quote me on that Ramsey's running the Dolphins, and he's laying out requests. So I want to get into, is Ramsey in control running the Dolphins, or is Grier cooking? And I don't like either one of them, tell you the truth. I don't like what Ramsey's doing. I don't know if you know, but I'm not a big fan of Grier. Hot newsflash, I guess, to some. So I'm really going to just try to evaluate this thing fairly and try to present both sides. I'll come to a sort of a verdict at the end, but this is still a fog of war moment. We don't know exactly what is what, but things are starting to flesh out. So that's going to be my deal. Guys, like, subscribe, comments, and views, all that stuff is how this thing rolls. I'm slow to learn it, so if you can help me out with all that stuff to keep the algorithm gods happy, keep my sponsors sponsoring me, I'd be much obliged. And if you are already, I am grateful. And there's a bunch of you, so many. I'm closing in on that 9K mark. They wanted 10, but 9K is a nice little milestone. So I'm looking forward to getting to that, because that means things. It means velocity to how they put your channel out there. So that's the whole deal. Anyway, let's get into it. Ramsey, I'm going to go to Ramsey, and then I'm going to go to Grier, and then I'm going to talk about the leverage of this situation, and I'm going to come to my final verdict. First, I want to start with Ramsey. You can see here by Matt Infante, he's reposting ESPN's Jay Fowler, reporting that the Dolphins are optimistic about finding a trade partner for Jalen Ramsey, even calls it the next domino to drop league-wide. Reports Miami is talking to multiple teams, including the Rams. Obviously, seems like a deal will get done before camp. And that's the big thing we have to remember for all of this. We wanted it done June 1st. I'm sure maybe Miami wanted it done, and Ramsey wanted it done June 1st. But the pressure is building both for us and other teams as you get to camp. If it's not done at camp, then that's a different story. So I'm not so perturbed, although if we move off Ramsey, depending on the deal, we might have some extra money sort of to add talent to us, and it does constrict us in that way. But you can't really get on Grier. There's a lot to get on Grier about playing this kind of game, because we talked about a bunch of teams, Atlanta, Rams, then Steelers kind of popped into view, possibly, who was it? Chiefs, and there was a bunch of teams there, that known players, but then the Steelers popped up, and Ramsey has friends over there. He liked a bunch of tweets, one talking about how the superstars were getting together, ready to make a run. So we know that he kind of wants that maybe, or he's maybe drumming up competition so he can get a good value and they can get out of this team, because the more teams that are bidding on this, the more likely the Dolphins will get what they want and he can get out of here. But then we heard, I think it was yesterday, that the Chargers were also in play. And then we heard Ramsey saying he wants to be traded to the West Coast. And that kind of obviously struck me wrong. He was given a massive contract. We traded a third-round pick for him, and he played a year and a half, and then he got the massive contract. Now he's forcing himself off the team. And it strikes as entitlement, maybe narcissism. Maybe they have the right to do it. I don't know. But, I want to go here after getting a big contract. Kind of makes him look like a jerk. So the problem is, and some people were talking to me on the Twitter about, hey, you know what? You're wrong. If you send him to Pitt, you send him to LA, we play them. I think it's week 6, Chargers, maybe like week 15, Pittsburgh. And this could be a make or break season, maybe, for Grier and McDaniel. And you don't want Ramsey on that team, because it's going to make it a lot harder. Those games are going to be tough. We'll be home at the Chargers, but they're a tough team. And then we'll be on the road at Pittsburgh, and that ain't friendly. So I get it. My personal view is just get this guy out. Get good compensation wherever you can, because I don't think we're aiming at anything big this season. I want the future. For me, 2027 is the real year. And if we can get something by moving this guy, even if it's to Pittsburgh, a fourth or a fifth, that has conditional value, that can become an important piece that we can trade up to get a good player or use that pick to get a good player, to me, that's what it's all about. But I understand the idea of, hey, man, it could really hurt us this season. So from Grier's standpoint, it kind of doesn't look good for him, and it shouldn't. He made the trade. Like I said, he gave the third-round pick, a year and a half. Then you give him the big contract. Now he wants out. It was a bad move. It looked good in the moment, but when you add in the rest of it at the finality, it wasn't a good trade. And so clearly he wasn't cooking with this trade, although we thought it was in the beginning. But that's the past. What is he doing now? And can he fix that cooking to give us a better dish out of a bad situation? And as I said, the whole thing about the art of the deal is you get as many people in there, you get some people desperate, they see other people, and then maybe they'll say, hey, this is my level, but I really want them. These other teams are offering, I'll increase it. So Grier's doing the right thing. He's letting this thing slow cook until training camp starts. And then it becomes a problem. And then I think he loses some leverage. But up until this point, he's doing the right thing. And you're seeing from reports, all these different teams, Rams definitely want him. If you look at the Chargers roster, they have a huge hole, a right cornerback. They could definitely use him. So do the Steelers. And all three of these teams are looking to make good big time this season. And so Grier is positioning himself to get the best that he can. But obviously, there is different leverages at different times. I want to get into the leverage. Right now, Ramsey has a ton of leverage to that's why he understands what he can do. And that's why he's saying West Coast, and he's forced himself off the team. But out from 3 yards per carry made me really understand that his money is locked. And if he screws around too hard, like what he did with the Jags, he can lose a ton of money. And that will be good for us, and it will tell us how much he really wants to get off this team. So right now, the leverage kind of leans towards Ramsey, but once camps start, then he's got to determine how much money he loses. He could do different things to kind of mitigate it, but ultimately, if a trade doesn't come out, he has to play. And he can't screw around too hard or he'll lose a ton of money. So I think Grier, again, in summation, we should be happy that he's being patient. He's fighting for the best deal he can. And I think maybe more teams will pop up. And we just don't know what's being offered, who really wants him. And so it's very difficult. It's not fair to Grier. I mean, he deserves a lot of, gripes and stuff like that, to get on him too much. Ultimately, he could end up playing very bad for one of these two guys. But I think the process is heading in the right direction. I like this slow roll. Somebody will likely get desperate. And I was hearing 6th round pick, 5th round pick, and that's not going to happen. There's going to be a seesaw. How much money do we eat? And then how much compensation do we get based on what we eat? Clearly got to get something good. Grier is desperate to save face on this, and we need all we can get. Fireworks certainly, again, will start in training camp. It could get ugly. We're trying to get a clean locker room here. We're trying to get chemistry. If you guys don't remember, Rashad Jones, in his last year with Flores' first year, he was in the back seeding dissension. And he was one of the guys who kind of fueled Fitzpatrick to have his mom come out and say, my son's not being used right. He kind of was in the back seeding bad thoughts. And because everything is so tenuous with what we're building here, and we got a lot of young guys, Ramsey could play sort of, but then in the background chirping and making problems, and we don't need that. And that's why I think we need to get rid of this guy. I hope we get rid of this guy. I'm not too worried until camp starts. Now, last part, camp starts. He's here. and somebody goes down on one of these teams. Imagine if a top cornerback gets knocked out for a decent amount of time. I don't want it to happen, but think about what his value could be. So in a way, I think short-term, mid-term, Ramsey's in control, but Grier has more and more play as time goes on. So let's see how this thing plays out. Clearly, Ramsey is not the guy we wanted. He's not. He's kind of he's like a hill light as far as narcissism. And Grier, to me, is not the GM we want, but hopefully he can fix things. Hopefully he gets canned at the end of the season. But in the interim, let's hope this gets played out right. And don't get too excited until camp hits. Then fireworks could start, but it could end up our way, depending on how things play out. I do think our opportunity to reclaim some value somehow does strengthen maybe a little bit going into camp. So we'll see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.